Roses would have to be one of my all-time favourite flowers. They come in so many different colours, shapes and sizes. There is one for almost every outdoor space, style and occasion. Plus they have the most beautiful scents that drift all throughout the garden. Roses aren't without their problems though. They can require a little more attention than other flowering shrubs, but in my opinion, well worth the effort. So today I'm going to share some handy tips that'll have your roses strong and healthy, more resistant to pest and disease, and have them flowering from spring all the way through to autumn. Position is really important. If you haven't already planted your rose, try and find a position that has around 6 hours of sunlight per day. Roses absolutely love the sun. So if they're planted in the shade, they can become quite leggy, they won't flower as well, and they will be more prone to fungal disease. Roses are thirsty plants. A lot of people think roses are tough and hardy and don't need a lot of water, but that's just not the case. We need to water our roses at least once or twice a week through the growing season and every day in the height of summer. Water at the base of the rose and give it a good soak. Watering over the foliage can encourage fungal diseases like black spot and mildew, so try to avoid this. I feed my roses with a specialised rose fertilizer pellet. It works just a little bit better than the other fertilisers as it's been customised for roses and their needs. I fertilise each rose once a month through the growing season and once more in mid to late autumn. I do this by scattering a good handful of fertiliser around the base, making sure that none is up against the rose as this can cause burn. I then give them a really good soak with water to settle it in. If you want to give your roses that extra push, you can give each one a handful of blood and bone at the beginning of spring and the beginning of autumn. This will give your roses an even bigger boost of nutrients. It's important to mulch your roses mainly for water retention, but also to add nutrients into the soil and to prevent weeds from growing. You can use most mulches on roses, but I prefer to use a compost or a loosened mulch, as I find it gives me much better results. Pruning and deadheading roses is honestly one of my favourite jobs in the garden. Here are some tips to have your roses growing strong and healthy and flowering all season long. Step 1. Make sure all your tools are clean to prevent any spread of disease and sharp to prevent any bruising or tearing of the stems. Step 2. Remember the 3 Ds. Remove any dead, damaged or diseased wood. Step 3. Remove any stems crossing over or rubbing on each other. If left, the rubbing may cause a wound and make that part of the rose weak and more susceptible to disease. Step 4. Take away any stems that are clogging up the centre of the rose. We want the centre of the rose to have as much airflow through it as possible to prevent fungal diseases. Step 5. Remove any spent or damaged flowers. We call this deadheading, and the main reason we do this is to promote new flower growth. The more you deadhead, the more flowers your rose will produce. When pruning, you should cut at a 45-degree angle, 5 millimeters above an outward facing bud and in the same direction as the bud. How hard to prune your rose, it's really up to you. You can go really hard and keep the rose down in size, or on the other hand, you can just take the flower heads off. Now you're basically a rose expert, there's no reason you shouldn't have the best roses in the street.